Have you ever watched two really smart people look at the exact same thing and come to completely opposite conclusions? It's baffling, right? It happens all the time, whether we're talking about news, politics, or even science. And a lot of the time, the disagreement isn't about the facts themselves, it's about how they're thinking. We're about to dive into a perfect example of this. So here's the setup. We've got a pretty heated debate over a single controversial historical event. Now, on the surface, you'd think it's just an argument about what happens. But if you dig just a little bit deeper, you realize, whoa, something else is going on. These two experts aren't even playing the same game. So what's the real story here?
And that's the thing. The real story isn't about the event. It's about a fundamental clash in their methods, their very systems for deciding what's true and what's not. This is a battle of intellectual blueprints. In one corner, we have Ardestani. He's coming at this as a phenomenologist, which means he's focused on experience and moral reason. And in the other corner, there's Kashani, a theologian who builds his entire case from historical texts and tradition. Right from the get-go, they're starting in two completely different places. This gets us right to the heart of their disagreement. It's basically a showdown between two massive sources of knowledge. On one hand, you have universal human reason, and on the other, you have carefully checked out historical texts. The big question is, which one gets the final say? For Ardestani, the ultimate judge is something he calls transcendental reason. Now, you can just think of it as a kind of universal moral compass that everyone has. He believes that if a historical story just fundamentally clashes with a moral or rational principle, well then the story itself has to be questioned, no matter what ancient book it came from. And Ardestani makes this super clear with this one question. To him, the very idea that a revered figure would act in a way that seems morally wrong is just so unbelievable that it makes him doubt the whole story. He calls this his method of rational incredulity. If it doesn't make sense rationally or morally, he's incredulous.
Kashani, though, he's coming from the complete opposite direction. He uses what we can call narrative-based reason. For him, reason doesn't get to be this outside judge looking in on history. Nope. Reason's job is to work inside the world that's already been built by reliable texts. You have to build the house with the textual bricks first, and only then can you start analyzing it.
This quote from him just nails his whole approach. Kashani's first move is always to the library, not to some abstract idea of what's right or wrong. His method is all about narrative proof. You gather the evidence, you make sure the sources are legit, and only then do you get to figure out the why and the how. So let's just trace Ardestani's logic real quick. Step 1, he spots a moral problem with a story. Step 2, that problem makes him doubt the event ever happened. And step 3, if that doubt is strong enough, he rejects the historical text that tells the story. For him, morality gets to vet history. Now, Kashani's path is built in a totally different way. He starts by gathering a whole bunch of texts. From all that evidence, he proves that, yeah, the event probably did happen. And only then, as the very last step, does he start to analyze the reasons for it. See the difference? For him, history gets to vet morality. As you can probably guess, these two very different starting points lead to completely different ways of even looking at history as a field of study. I mean, is it a real science with hard rules, or is it just a bunch of stories that might or might not be true? This chart just lays it all out perfectly. Ardestani sees historical documents as kind of speculative, maybe not so trustworthy. A single report from the past? To him, that's invalid. And just because a story is famous or everyone agrees on it, that doesn't make it true. But for Kashani, history is a science. Documents can be critiqued, a single report can be totally valid if it's backed up by other evidence, and consensus is a really important piece of the puzzle. They are literally speaking two different languages when it comes to evidence. So, naturally, when you have systems that are this different, each person is going to see some major holes in the other guy's logic. And this is where the debate gets really, really sharp. Kashani really goes on the attack. He says Ardestani contradicts himself. He'll say history is unreliable, but then use it when it suits him. He points out that Ardestani uses what he considers weak evidence, like movies or modern examples, and he basically accuses him of making huge theological claims without any proof from the texts, mixing up his own personal feelings with actual historical work. But Ardestani fires right back. He criticizes what he sees as Kashani's extreme focus on texts, arguing that it forces him to just ignore contradictions. He says Kashani completely dismisses moral reason as a legitimate tool, emotionalizes the debate, and doesn't think about the real-world negative impact of promoting some of these harsh old stories. When you peel back all those layers of argument and method and critique, you find something much, much deeper. This isn't just about a disagreement over history. It's about two fundamentally different worldviews. And here it is, laid out plain and simple. For Ardestani, religion is all about a lived experience guided by your inner moral reason, where key figures are supposed to be moral examples for us to follow. For Kashani, religion is a system of divine truth, handed down through a reliable tradition, where those same figures are divinely appointed leaders with a specific job to do.
And that's the whole ballgame. This was never just about what happened on one day in history. It was a collision of two complete, separate, self-contained ways of understanding the world. They weren't just debating facts, they were debating the very nature of truth itself. Which, of course, leaves us with one last big question. When two people's foundations are this different, when they're operating from completely separate blueprints for reality, can they ever actually agree? Is a shared conclusion even possible?